The emergency sirens screamed through the council chamber like the death cry of a dying star. Ambassador Margaret ran down the marble corridors, her heart pounding against her ribs. She had never heard those alarms in her 40 years of service. They were the kind of alarms that meant everything was about to change. The great doors burst open before her. Inside, the council chamber was chaos. Representatives from 100 worlds shouted over each other. Screens flickered with red warnings. And in the center of it all stood Elder Thomas, the oldest living being in the galaxy, staring at a holographic display with pure terror in his ancient eyes. "What's happening?" Margaret demanded, pushing through the crowd. Commander James grabbed her arm. His face was pale. "The Sol System. Something's coming from the Sol System." Margaret felt her blood turn to ice. "That's impossible. Sol is dead. Has been for 10,000 years. Look at the readings," James said, pointing to the screens. The energy signatures were off the charts. Technology that shouldn't exist. Power levels that made their best warships look like children's toys. Archivist Helen rushed into the chamber, her arms full of ancient data tablets. She was breathing hard, as if she'd run all the way from the forbidden archives in the lower levels. "I found them," she gasped. "The old records. The sealed ones." "What records?" Margaret asked. Helen's hands shook as she activated the tablets. Holographic text appeared in the air, written in languages so old that the translation program struggled to make sense of them. But one word appeared again and again in every language in every report. "Humans." Elder Thomas finally spoke. His voice was quiet, but everyone stopped talking to listen. "I had hoped I would die before this day came." "What day?" Margaret demanded. "Thomas, what's happening?" The old elder touched the hologram and an image appeared. It showed a planet, blue and green and beautiful. But this Earth was burning. Cities glowed with nuclear fire. The oceans boiled. The sky was black with ash. 10,000 years ago, Thomas began, humanity stood on the edge of extinction. They had discovered atomic weapons and used them against themselves. Their world was dying. Their species should have ended. But they didn't, Helen whispered, reading from the tablets. Every species that met them documented the same thing. Humans don't accept death. They don't accept defeat. They don't accept the natural order of things. James pulled up more files. Battle reports. Diplomatic records. Medical documents. They sent soldiers into battle who should have been dead. Warriors with metal hearts and artificial lungs. Fighters with cybernetic limbs who refused to stop. One soldier lost both legs and came back in a floating chair she turned into a mobile command center. Margaret stared at the reports. "That's impossible. No species can do that." "Humans could," Thomas said. "But that wasn't why we feared them." He opened another file. It showed a human woman standing before a council much like their own. Her name tag read Ambassador Catherine Reynolds. She was smiling. "She negotiated peace between the Draxian and Keltorian empires," Thomas continued. "Two civilizations that had been at war for 3 centuries. She ended it in 6 months. "That's impressive," Margaret said. "Not terrifying." "She did it," Thomas said quietly, "by exposing that their entire war was being orchestrated by weapons manufacturers on both sides. She turned their economies inside out. She made their people question everything." Helen pulled up more records. Then there was Colonel Michael Torres. He introduced the concept of democracy to the Prian slaves. Within 10 years, 17 authoritarian governments had fallen. Not to human weapons. To human ideas. "They infected the galaxy with hope," James said, reading from his screen. "They taught slaves they could be free. They showed the conquered they could fight back. They spread ideas like freedom and choice and rights." Margaret began to understand. "You didn't exile them because they were violent. You exiled them because they were dangerous in a different way." 47 species, Thomas said, his voice heavy with old guilt. 47 different civilizations united for the first time in galactic history. Not to conquer a world. Not to seize resources. But to survive one species that refused to accept that some beings were meant to rule and others meant to serve. "We left them on their burning world," Helen said softly. "We sealed the Sol System. We told ourselves they would die in the nuclear winter. We told ourselves it was mercy." The screen suddenly flared bright. A new signal. Stronger. Closer. A voice crackled through every speaker in the chamber. "Human. Mel. Come. Council ships, this is Captain William Drake of the human vessel Perseverance. We've been watching you for a long time. We think it's time we had a conversation." Margaret looked at Thomas. The old elder's face was resigned. They survived, he whispered. Heaven help us all. They survived. The council fleet hung in space at the edge of the Sol system like nervous prey animals waiting for a predator. Margaret stood on the bridge of the lead ship beside Commander James, watching the view screen with a mixture of fear and fascination. Sensors are going crazy, James muttered. I'm reading orbital stations around Earth. Colonies on the Moon. Massive installations on Mars. This is impossible. We left them dying, Margaret whispered. How did they build all this? The view screen flickered and a face appeared. A human face. The man looked about 40 years old with dark hair and calm brown eyes that seemed to see right through her. He wore a simple uniform with a name patch that read Captain William Drake. Hello, Council, William said. His voice was friendly, almost casual. Like he was greeting old neighbors, not the civilization that had tried to erase his species from existence. I hope you had a pleasant journey. Margaret found her voice. We believed you were extinct. William smiled. It wasn't a cruel smile. That somehow made it worse. You left us to burn. You watched our world cook in nuclear fire and sealed the system so no one could help us. You expected us to die. Your planet was destroyed, James said. The readings from 10,000 years ago showed that we were idiots who nearly killed ourselves, William interrupted. You weren't wrong about that. We made terrible mistakes. But you made one mistake too. What mistake? Margaret asked. You assumed we would give up. The view screen split. One side showed William. The other showed Earth. But this wasn't the burning hellscape from the old records. This Earth was alive. Green forests covered the continents. Blue oceans sparkled. White clouds drifted across a clear sky. Cities glowed with soft light instead of nuclear fire. Margaret felt tears sting her eyes. You healed it. Took 3,000 years, William said. 3,000 years of living underground. Of cleaning the soil one handful at a time. Of purifying the oceans drop by drop. Of replanting forests seed by seed. Humans are stubborn that way. Another human appeared on the screen beside William. A woman with red hair and sharp green eyes. Her name tag read Dr. Alice Moore. While we were healing Earth, Alice said, we were also advancing. We had nothing but time. Time to think. Time to build. Time to learn from our mistakes. She brought up technical displays that made James gasp. Quantum fold drives. Controlled singularity reactors. Genetic repair technology. Neural computer interfaces. We've been busy. That technology is impossible, James breathed. We've been trying to develop quantum drives for 2,000 years. You've been trying to do it safely, Alice said with a slight smile. We tried to do it desperately. Turns out desperation is a wonderful teacher. William leaned forward. For the last 7,000 years we've been watching you. We see everything. Every council meeting. Every decision. Every species you've ignored or oppressed. Margaret's blood ran cold. That's not possible. Our security is designed to stop other council species, William said. Not us. We had 10,000 years to learn how you think. How you operate. You're predictable. James pulled up a star map, his hands shaking. These coordinates. These are our colony systems. Are you saying? We're already there, William confirmed. 12 of your systems have human colonies on uninhabited moons or asteroids. We've been trading with the local populations for decades. Teaching them. Helping them. They know us. They trust us. That's an act of war. Margaret shouted. William's expression didn't change. Is it? We settled on empty rocks you didn't want. We offered help to species you'd forgotten about. We asked permission from the people who actually lived there. That's not invasion. That's immigration. Elder Thomas appeared on their communication screen, looking even older than before. What do you want, Captain Drake? What we wanted 10,000 years ago, William said simply. A seat at the council. Recognition as equals. The right to participate in galactic civilization. And if we refuse? Thomas asked. William glanced at someone off-screen. A young man appeared. His name tag read Lieutenant David Chin. Then we build our own council, David said. 43 species have already sent us private messages asking to join. They're tired of your rules. Your restrictions. Your control. You're threatening us, James said. No, William corrected. We're offering you a choice. You can accept that humanity has returned and work with us. Or you can pretend we don't exist while half the galaxy leaves you behind. Either way, we're not going anywhere. Alice brought up images of human families living peacefully alongside alien neighbors. Markets where humans and aliens traded goods. Schools where human children and alien children learned together. This is already happening, she said. The question isn't whether humanity joins galactic civilization. The question is whether the Council joins the galaxy that's already moved on without them. Margaret looked at James. The commander looked at his crew. The crew looked at their screens showing the thriving human colonies. They're right, James said quietly. Look at those settlements. They're not military bases. They're communities. The local species look happy. William stood. We'll be waiting at the edge of your space for your answer. But not forever. The galaxy is changing, Council. You can change with it or be left behind. The screen went dark. Margaret sat down heavily. What have we done? Thomas's voice came through their speakers, old and tired. We tried to bury hope. And we've just learned that hope doesn't die. It waits. Elder Thomas stood alone in the deepest level of the Council archives. His old hands shook as he entered the access codes that hadn't been used in 10,000 years. The security system beeped 3 times, warning him that these files were sealed by order of the Ancient Council. He entered the override code anyway. The room filled with holograms. Thousands of them. Reports from every species that had encountered humanity before the exile. Thomas had read them all before, centuries ago, when he was young and frightened. Now he needed others to see them too. He sent a priority summons to the Council chamber. Margaret arrived first, followed by James and Helen. They found Thomas standing in a sea of floating blue light, each hologram showing a different piece of humanity's history. You need to understand, Thomas said without turning around. You need to see what we saw. What we feared. He touched a hologram and it expanded. A woman appeared, standing before an ancient council. Her uniform was simple but clean. Her dark hair was pulled back in a neat bun. Her brown eyes sparkled with intelligence and kindness. The name caption read Ambassador Catherine Reynolds. This was 12,000 years ago, Thomas explained. The Draxian Empire and the Keltorian Dominion had been at war for 3 centuries. Billions had died. Neither side would negotiate. We had given up trying to make peace between them. The hologram showed Catherine speaking to both war councils. She presented documents, financial records, communications between weapons manufacturers. She proved that the war was being prolonged deliberately, Helen said, reading the old reports. The weapons companies on both sides were working together. They were making billions while their people died. She didn't just expose it, Thomas said. She convinced the soldiers on both sides to stop fighting. She went directly to the people and showed them they were dying for someone else's profit. The war ended in 6 months. Both governments collapsed within a year. Margaret stared at the image. She destroyed 2 civilizations? She freed 2 populations, James corrected, reading further. Look, both species formed democratic governments afterward. They're still allies today. Thomas moved to another hologram. This one showed a human soldier. The caption read Sergeant Emma Walsh. She sat in a floating chair, but it wasn't a normal medical chair. It was covered in armor plates. Weapons were mounted on the sides. A command console glowed in front of her. She lost both legs to a mine, Thomas explained. Should have been retired. Should have gone home. Instead, she modified her medical chair and returned to combat. She commanded troops for 15 more years from that chair. Another hologram appeared. Private David Miller with a visible scar on his chest where his heart had been replaced with a mechanical one. Lieutenant Sarah Bennett with cybernetic arms. Captain Robert Shaw with artificial lungs. All of them had nearly died. All of them had come back. They don't accept defeat, Helen whispered. Even their own bodies can't stop them. That's what terrified us, Thomas admitted. A species that refuses to die. That turns every setback into motivation. Every loss into a lesson. He opened the final set of files. These were marked with red warnings. Classified. Dangerous. Not to be shared. The hologram showed a human man in military uniform speaking to a crowd of aliens. The aliens wore collars. Slave collars. The caption read Colonel Michael Torres addressing the Prian labor force. What's he doing? Margaret asked. Thomas played the audio. Colonel Michael's voice was clear and strong. You are not property. You are people. You have rights. You have power. And I'm going to teach you how to use it. He taught them about democracy, Helen said, her eyes wide. He taught slaves about freedom. The next hologram showed what happened after. Peaceful protests, strikes, sit-ins. The Prian slaves refusing to work until they were freed. And when the government tried to force them, other species joined the protests. The movement spread across 17 worlds. 17 authoritarian governments fell in less than 20 years, Thomas said. Not because of human weapons. Not because of human armies. Because of human ideas. James pulled up more records. Workers' rights. Fair trials. Representative government. Freedom of speech. Humans introduced all of these concepts to species that had never heard them before. And we couldn't stop it, Thomas said quietly. Once people heard these ideas, they couldn't unhear them. Slaves started questioning why they were slaves. Workers asked why they had no rights. Citizens wondered why they had no voice in their own governments. Margaret began to understand. You didn't exile them because they were violent. You exiled them because they were infectious. Our entire civilization was built on order, Thomas explained. Some species rule. Some serve. Some lead. Some follow. It had been that way for 100,000 years. And then humans arrived and asked one simple question. Why? Helen found another file. This one made her gasp. They assassinated Ambassador Catherine. During peace talks. You killed her. Thomas closed his eyes. The council of that time decided humanity was too dangerous to exist. We couldn't beat their ideas, so we framed them for crimes they didn't commit. We spread lies about them. We turned the galaxy against them. And then we left them on their dying world and told ourselves it was for the greater good. The holograms continued to play. Humans teaching aliens to read. Humans sharing medical technology freely. Humans helping build schools and hospitals. Every act of kindness had been twisted in the official reports to look like manipulation or control. We weren't afraid of what humans did, Thomas said. We were afraid of what they believed. That every thinking being deserves freedom. That rights aren't given by governments but are born into every person. That anyone from any species, from any background, could rise to greatness if given the chance. Margaret's communication device beeped. She looked at the message and her face went pale. 43 species have just sent formal requests to meet with humanity. Privately. Without council oversight. James checked his own device. My crew is asking questions. They want to know if the old reports about humans were true. They want to know what else the council has been hiding. Thomas looked at them all. It's happening again. Just like before. And this time we can't stop it because humans aren't alone anymore. They've already made friends. Already built trust. Already planted the seeds of change. Helen pulled up a live feed from one of the human colonies. Humans and aliens working side by side. Children of different species playing together. Markets where everyone traded as equals. Look at them, she said softly. They're not plotting or scheming. They're just living. And showing others that another way is possible. Thomas touched the hologram of Catherine Reynolds one last time. We tried to bury the truth. We tried to bury hope itself. But you can't kill an idea whose time has come. And humanity's time has come again. Elder Robert stood in his private command center, surrounded by holographic displays showing military positions. His face was hard with determination. Beside him stood 6 other council members who shared his fear of humanity's return. They're poisoning the galaxy again, Robert said, his voice tight with anger. Just like before. We can't let them spread their chaos. Admiral Patricia Hayes, no relation to Ambassador Margaret, nodded grimly. The human colony on New Boston is their largest settlement. If we strike there, we send a message. Humanity isn't welcome. The main council will try to stop us, another elder warned. The main council is weak, Robert snapped. They're already talking about negotiations. About giving humans a seat. They've forgotten what happened last time. He turned to Patricia. How soon can you attack? My fleet is ready now, she replied. We strike at dawn. Across the galaxy, Captain Williams sat in his command chair aboard the Perseverance. Dr. Alice stood beside him, watching a tactical display. Robert's ships are moving, Alice said calmly. Heading for New Boston, just like we predicted. William didn't look surprised. He looked sad. Scenario 7. We hoped they'd choose differently. Should I give the evacuation order? Alice asked. Already done, William said. New Boston was evacuated 3 days ago. Everyone's safe. A young officer looked confused. Sir, if we knew they'd attack, why didn't we stop them? William turned to face his crew. Because we needed the galaxy to see who strikes first. We needed proof of their intentions. And we needed Robert to learn a lesson he'll never forget. At dawn, Robert's fleet arrived at New Boston. The colony sat on a beautiful moon with blue skies and green valleys. Cities gleamed in the morning light. But something was wrong. Admiral, a sensor officer called out. I'm not reading any life signs. The colony is empty. Patricia's eyes widened. It's a trap. All ships, evasive. The defense systems activated. Not weapons that destroyed but technology that disabled. Electromagnetic pulses shut down engines. Tractor beams held ships in place. Not a single shot was fired, but Robert's entire fleet was helpless in minutes. William's face appeared on every screen. Hello, Elder Robert. Welcome to New Boston. Or should I say, welcome to the most obvious trap in military history. Robert's face turned red with rage. You dare. We evacuated this colony 3 days ago, William interrupted calmly. We knew you'd attack because you're predictable. You're scared. And scared people make simple choices. He leaned forward. Your crews are safe. Your ships are intact. You can leave whenever you want. But first, the galaxy needs to see something. The view screens changed. Dr. Alice appeared on every communication channel across every inhabited world. Not just council channels. Every channel. Every screen. Every device capable of receiving a signal. People of the galaxy, Alice began, her voice clear and strong. Today humanity shares a gift. For 10,000 years, we've been developing technology in isolation. We've made breakthroughs in energy, medicine, computing, and more. And today we're releasing all of it. Free. Open source. For everyone. Margaret watched from the council chamber as her screen filled with technical specifications. Clean fusion reactors. Advanced medical scanners. Quantum computers. Agricultural technology that could feed billions. All of it free. All of it available immediately. This is insane, another council member breathed. This technology is it's priceless. They're collapsing the entire galactic economy, James realized. Every major corporation, every monopoly the elders control, it's all worthless now. But Alice wasn't finished. Historian Helen appeared on the screens next. She stood in what looked like Earth's archives, surrounded by old documents and recordings. The council has been lying to you, Helen said simply. She brought up the old files. The real files. 12,000 years ago, humanity sent ambassadors to negotiate peace. The council assassinated them. Ambassador Catherine Reynolds was killed during peace talks. The council framed humanity for crimes we never committed. The recordings played. Catherine's murder. The fake evidence. The orders to exile humanity and let them die. We weren't exiled for violence, Helen continued. We were exiled for teaching freedom. For showing slaves they could be free. For proving that ordinary people could govern themselves. The council couldn't control us, so they tried to erase us. Across the galaxy, populations watched in stunned silence. Then the silence broke. Protests erupted on 100 worlds. Workers walked off their jobs. Students marched in the streets. Citizens demanded answers from their governments. In the council chamber, Margaret's communication device exploded with incoming messages. Species after species announcing they were leaving the council. Joining humanity's Terran Accord. Choosing freedom over control. Commander James stood suddenly. His crew looked at him, waiting. He took a deep breath and removed his council insignia. I can't serve a system built on lies, he said clearly. I won't serve leaders who murder ambassadors and hide the truth. He looked at his crew. Any of you who want to stay with the council, I understand. But I'm joining humanity. Every single crew member removed their insignia. Margaret watched her screen as the count climbed. 50 species leaving the council. 70. 100. 150. 200. Elder Thomas appeared beside her, looking tired but somehow relieved. It's over, he said quietly. The old order is finished. Robert screamed from his disabled ship. This is war. We won't let you destroy everything we've built. William's voice was gentle but firm. Robert, we didn't destroy anything. We freed it. Your ships are disabled but safe. Your crews can go home. And you can choose to join the new galaxy or stay with the old one. But you can't stop change by attacking it. You can only choose how you respond to it. Patricia, Robert's admiral, looked at her crew. Young faces. Hopeful faces. Faces that had just learned their entire government had lied to them. Stand down, she ordered quietly. Power down weapons. We're going home. Admiral. Robert protested. No, Patricia said firmly. I didn't sign up to fight for liars. I signed up to protect people. And right now humanity is protecting more people than the council ever did. Margaret watched her screen as more species declared independence. The old council was collapsing not through war but through choice. Every being in the galaxy had just been given the truth and the tools to build something better. And they were choosing humanity's way. James stood beside her. What do we do now? Margaret looked at the chaos around them. The old elders shouting. The young members celebrating. The galaxy transforming before their eyes. We choose too, she said, removing her own council insignia. We choose freedom. The council chamber was half empty. Where once 300 representatives had sat, now barely 80 remained. The rest had left to join humanity's Terran Accord. The great hall felt cold and hollow, like a tomb for an empire that had died overnight. Elder Thomas stood at the center, looking older than anyone had ever seen him. Beside him stood Elder Robert, defeated and silent. Around them, the remaining council members waited to see what would happen next. The main screen flickered to life. Captain William appeared, standing on what looked like a simple conference room rather than a warship bridge. Dr. Alice and Ambassador Emma stood beside him. Behind them, representatives from 200 different species waited quietly. Hello, Council, William said. His voice was calm. Not triumphant. Not angry. Just calm. I think we need to talk. Margaret, now sitting in the lower seats after removing her council position, spoke first. You've won, Captain Drake. 200 species have left us. Our economy is in ruins. Our authority is gone. What more do you want? William looked genuinely surprised. What? Ambassador Margaret, this isn't a game. There's no winning or losing here. There's just choice. You destroyed us, Robert said bitterly. You took everything we built. No, Emma replied gently. You built a system on lies and control. We just showed people the truth and gave them alternatives. They made their own choices. Alice brought up a holographic display. It showed the galaxy divided into 3 colors. Blue for species that had joined the Terran Accord. Red for species staying with the Council. And green for species still deciding. 212 species have chosen the Accord, Alice explained. 83 are staying with the Council. 45 are still thinking about it. That's your galaxy now. Thomas looked at the map and felt something unexpected. Relief. What happens now? Do you declare war on those who stayed with us? Do you force us to join you? William shook his head slowly. That's exactly what we won't do. Because if we force change through violence or threats, we'd become the tyrants we fought against. He stepped closer to the screen. Here's what humanity offers. Any species that wants to join the Terran Accord can do so freely. We'll share technology. We'll trade as equals. We'll help build schools and hospitals and farms. But we won't force anyone. And those who stay with the Council? Robert asked suspiciously. You leave us alone, we leave you alone, William said simply. You can keep your system. Run it however you want. We won't interfere. We won't attack. We won't try to convert your people. You have the right to govern yourselves however you choose. The remaining council members looked at each other in confusion. This wasn't how conquest worked. This wasn't how power changed hands. Commander James, now standing with the humans, spoke up. I know this seems strange, but that's the difference. The old council forced obedience. Humanity offers partnership. You're free to choose and that choice will be respected. Margaret stood slowly. And if species in our territory ask to leave? Ask to join you? Emma answered. Then you let them go. Because people aren't property. Populations aren't possessions. If beings want to choose freedom, you don't have the right to stop them. That will destroy what's left of the council, Thomas said quietly. Maybe, William acknowledged. Or maybe it will force the council to become something better. Something people actually want to be part of instead of something they're trapped in. A young council member named David stood up. He was from one of the species that had been conquered centuries ago and absorbed into the council. What about justice? The council murdered your ambassadors. They tried to exterminate your species. Don't you want revenge? William was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was heavy with old pain. We want Ambassador Catherine Reynolds remembered as a hero, not a victim. We want the truth known. But revenge? Revenge would mean becoming like the people who hurt us. And we refuse to do that. Alice pulled up images. Memorials being built on Earth for Catherine and the other murdered ambassadors. History books being written with the true story. Schools being named after the fallen humans. We remember, Alice said softly. We honor them. And we make sure their dream of a free galaxy comes true. That's our justice. Elder Robert stood, his face twisted with confusion and shame. I don't understand you. We tried to kill you. Twice. And you're just letting us go? Yes, Emma said. Because that's what people who believe in freedom do. We give you the same choice we give everyone. Stay or leave. Change or remain. It's your decision. Thomas felt tears on his ancient face. We don't deserve this mercy. Probably not, William agreed. But mercy isn't about deserving. It's about being better than your worst moments. It's about breaking cycles instead of continuing them. The screen shifted to show the first Terran Accord assembly. Hundreds of species sitting together. Not in a hierarchy with some above others, but in circles where everyone could see everyone else. Humans sat mixed among the aliens, not at the head table, but scattered throughout like any other members. This is what we're building, Emma explained. True representation. Every species gets a voice. Decisions are made together. No one rules. We all participate. Margaret wiped her own eyes. You're really not going to conquer us? We're really not, William confirmed. But I hope someday you'll choose to join us. Not because you have to. Not because you're forced. But because you see what we're building and want to be part of it. Commander James stepped forward. The Terran Accord is holding elections next month for the first Joint Council. Any species can run. Any being can vote. Humanity won't lead it. We'll participate in it. You'd give up control? Robert asked, stunned. We never wanted control, Alice said. We wanted partnership. We wanted to be part of something bigger than ourselves. That's all we ever wanted. Thomas made a decision. He stood tall, looking at the remaining council members. I propose we dissolve the old council. Not because we have to, but because we should. This system failed. It was built on fear and control. If we're going to continue, we need to rebuild from the ground up. Make something our people actually choose. The vote was unanimous. The old council ended not with war or conquest, but with choice. 6 months later, Margaret stood on Earth for the first time. The planet was beautiful. Green and blue and alive. She was there for the memorial dedication to Ambassador Catherine Reynolds. Captain William stood beside her as they looked at the statue. Catherine's face was gentle but determined. The inscription read, "She taught us that every being deserves freedom." She'd be proud, Margaret said softly. I hope so, William replied. She died trying to make the galaxy better. We're just finishing what she started. The new Federation is working, Margaret continued. 70 species from the old council have asked to join. Including mine. William smiled. Welcome home then. To all of you. Across the galaxy, ships from 1,000 species traveled freely. Humans and aliens worked together, learned together, lived together. Not because they were forced to, but because they chose to. And in the archives, Helen finished her final entry. Humanity's greatest weapon was never technology or stubbornness. It was their unshakable belief that every sentient being deserved freedom. The species the galaxy feared became the species that saved it. Not through force but through hope. Captain William looked up at the stars, now filled with friends instead of enemies. Welcome home, humanity, he whispered to the statue of Catherine. And across the cosmos, 1 billion voices whispered back in unity and peace. Welcome home.